on the surface, micromanagement is not good. There's a negative connotation that comes with micromanagement. But is it really bad, or is there a place for it? And how do we avoid the negative situations when it comes to micromanagement? Hello, and welcome to Enter the Nebula, episode 24. My name's Mike Ergo, and this week we're talking about micromanagement. Last week we talked about the difference between macro and micro thinking. This week we're talking about micromanagement, which I would define as when you, as the employee, feel like your manager or leader is in your business too much or over your shoulder. And as a leader, it feels like you have to constantly be following up or babysitting, right? And so on the surface, micromanagement is not good. There's a negative connotation that comes with micromanagement. But is it really bad, or is there a place for it? And how do we avoid the negative situations when it comes to micromanagement? I think first you have to look at it from two different lenses. And we'll start from a managerial or leadership lens. I think sometimes the knee jerk reaction is to blame having to micromanage on the employee. And I think the first thing we should do as leaders is look in the mirror and see, am I the problem? Have I been giving clear direction to my employees? Or am I giving ambiguous direction and expecting an exact result? Because there's two situations there, right? As leaders, sometimes we have an exact expectation, but maybe sometimes we don't give clear direction. So we may not get the result we're looking for. And that's on us. And other times we may not know exactly what we're looking for. So we give ambiguous direction and we have to expect an ambiguous result back. Maybe not exactly what we had in mind. And that's okay. That's not necessarily the employee's fault, right? So we have to understand and set expectations in our head depending on the situation. And we have to make sure that if we have very specific expectations, that we are communicating them to the employee to set them up for success. And as an employee, sometimes I think we need to look in the mirror and make sure we're managing up. If we get a set of ambiguous instructions and we don't ask any questions and we say, okay, and we walk out of the room and then we sit down at our desk, not necessarily sure what we're supposed to do, that's kind of on us too, because we need to be asking those questions, probing questions, questions of affirmation to make sure we're on the right path. The other thing we can do as we start is do some check-ins to make sure we're going down the right path. The other way we can manage up is to share if we feel like we're being babysat when we don't need to. Is there a concern? And I always try to assume positive intent. So if I'm an employee and I'm managing up to my leader, I try to assume positive intent. I try to avoid thinking that someone's trying to jam you up or be authoritative on purpose, and try to seek to understand why this micromanagement may be happening. Are they scheduling more meetings than you feel are necessary, or are they asking updates when you feel like you've already given it? Seek to understand, right? And maybe it's just the case that they forgot, and they're asking again, right? So sometimes I think we can create those micromanagement feelings in our head. Now the question is there a place for micromanagement? Is there a time when it can be useful? And in my experience, the answer is yes. I've had employees in the past that have talked to me stating that they need more structure, that I've been too hands off, that they need to be kept on task. And so when you have that conversation with the employee and you have that level of trust, that's where micromanagement isn't a bad thing, because they're expecting to be checked up on and they've asked for it. So there is a place for it. You just have to make sure you're working as a leader with your employee to understand what that looks like and defining that, And as the employee, being honest with your manager as to what you need and what will work for you. And if that's working, then is it really truly micromanagement, or is it just structure? Something to think about. So there you have two different lenses, right? You have the leadership lens, as the manager and things that you can do. You have the lens from the employee, ways you can manage up. And then finally, and this may be an unpopular opinion, I'm not sure, but if you find yourself in a position where you have a leader who is being malicious, and I get it, there are those situations that are out there. I've been lucky enough to not really have any malicious or nefarious type managers in my career. I've been really lucky. If you have someone who's really making you feel that way, and really not open to any kind of feedback, it's time to go. And that's okay too. And now that doesn't mean drop everything and quit, right? You need to continue to do a good job. You need to continue to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do, and then brush up your resume. And the market is tough right now. I know that more than anyone. But there's no sense sitting and suffering in silence if you've gone through the appropriate channels to give feedback. The, there are plenty of jobs out there. There's no reason that you have to stay in one place, especially if you're having an experience like that. It's the probably one of the biggest cliches in corporate America, that people leave managers and not jobs. Well, if that's the case, and you're feeling like you're under the microscope, and you can't get out, it's time to go. But I think more importantly, to focus, if you're the leader, focusing on giving really good expectations, and then also making sure you're meeting employees where they are if the expectations are ambiguous, and giving them some freedom, right? Maybe the deck isn't the way you'd like it, but it conveys the content, and the audience receives it. Not everything has to be exactly the way you would do it as the manager, right? And then as the employee, one, make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do, and make sure you're communicating openly with your manager to understand why you may be feeling these ways, and what they're doing, and maybe there's some things that they could do differently. But ultimately, the basis here is trust. And as leaders and as employees, the more you can build that level of trust, the more you're going to feel as a leader that you don't have to babysit your people, and as an employee that you won't feel as babysat by your manager, because they trust you and they trust the output that you're going to do. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. You can read the full article on my website, intellectualnebula.com. My name's Mike Ergo. I hope that you follow, like, share, comment on all of the platforms. It continues to help me build my brand. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next time.